Hello, YouTubers. A while back, I did a quick podcast interview with my dear friend Josh McCall in here, and we talked a little bit about, the ability to build decentralized social media platform. I called it Ta'arafu. It's an Arabic word that means get to know each other, learn about each other. Decentralized social media platforms allows people from everywhere to take control of their own data, know who they want to connect to, who they don't want to connect to, protects your privacy, protects your information, doesn't allow anybody anywhere to use your data without your permission to build prediction models or anything similar to that. And Joshua and I, we've actually been meeting almost regularly every weekend to kind of chat about whatever comes to mind. Josh and I have been friends for almost 10 years now. And one of the interesting things is that once we get on a phone call, or we get in a face-to-face kind of communications, we forget about what we were coming for, and we just start chatting about whatever comes to mind, right? Sometimes it's technology, sometimes faith, sometimes politics, sometimes whatever comes to mind, and we just go there for hours. And today we had to kind of time frame it, right, Josh? It's good to see you, brother.
Yeah, good to see you. Yeah, we sometimes we forget to hit record, and sometimes we shouldn't hit record. But we were like, we got to hit record today, so we cut the conversation short and we hit record. So we don't know what's gonna. We'll see what happens. So
So the plan is sweet and simple. Hit record.
hit record and don't regret it later. That's the plan.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a part of the work that we're really doing, Joshua, we're gonna go take a look at the current state of things, and then hopefully, we'll be able to move this project forward. There's a lot of efforts on the back end. I have a lot of people coming in contributing to build, posts, comments. I just gave someone a task today to build post report. If someone doesn't like a post, they can report it and say this is inappropriate content. There are people that are building the comment sections, like I said, groups, group post on a group, a lot of work that's happening on the back end. And Josh, the whole point that I'm trying to do this for, I want to teach people things, right? I want to build, every platform out in public. I call it the Noah style. You know how he built his ark out there in the public just to show people what he's doing? Let's do that. Hopefully no floods are coming. We're just trying to explain to people how things are built and all that kind of stuff. So let's look at the state of things, my friend, shall we? So let's go here. Josh, do you use Visual Studio ever? You know,
one every once in a while, I've heard of it. I think I have it downloaded.
it's it's it's
No,
it's
in all seriously, I do have the project downloaded, but I haven't got a chance to work with it. So, like, you can actually treat me kind of like a new team member, or
yes.
on board, or show me how the lay of the land and stuff.
See,
And
that's Josh for you right there. Go ahead, Josh. Sorry, go ahead.
I was gonna say I'll ask dumb questions on purpose. They're always on purpose. I just
Absolutely. So things so things evolved a little bit, since the last time you and I worked on a project, right? I'm always, evolving things, right? Right now we write C# code to provision our cloud components and deprovision our cloud components. We don't touch the cloud with our hands. Things have changed in terms of building, if you want to put the steps, you don't touch YAML anymore. You just build the C# model. And this C# model has autocomplete, it has all the capabilities that you need, and it basically kind of it generates that into a YAML file. So that's pretty cool. The release part I'm working on with Shri. You haven't met Shri yet, or you have, and we'll see how that works. But just as usual, there's a lot of things that I want to explore with you here, just so you guys understand. Josh is my personal mentor when it comes to Blazor components and UI components. Some 3 or 4 years ago, about 3 years ago, we decided to embark on one of the most dangerous things in the world. We had this deliverable, this project that we needed to get done, and we said, "Oh, we have a team that don't really understand UI design and front end technologies. Let's pick up on a very raw, very new technology like Blazor." and let's build it in that technology. And it paid off so much, you guys. I can't even begin to tell you how fun and amazing this experience is. There was points in time where we were delivering 32 features in one sprint. Do you remember that, Josh? Near the end, we were just like, oh, and there is this, and there's also these three other features, and you can actually generate reports, and you can do all of that. This project is a project that Daniel Roth demoed in the .NET Conf. It's called Intract, the Insider Trading Compliance Platform. It's one of the homegrown products built in Blazor, inside of Microsoft. Okay, so let's go into the project itself. So let me just open up the Tarafu portal real quick, and let's just see the lay of the land. Well, first things first, I'm thinking about upgrading this to .NET 7. Joshua, what do you think about that? Like pulling up
Sure.
the
Yeah. Let's.
I'm gonna pull up the entire project. I know that we get a lot of nice performance, kind of free performance improvements outside of the box. And since the project is always still in development stage, why don't we just, upgrade the project to .NET 7? I think that would be a good idea, right? So let's
Yeah,
just
and
do.
why do you always upgrade? So and I've noticed that as a trend. Like we seem to be, there's a new version come out, and like we'll do some testing, but instead of waiting and kind of seeing to if it's if everything works, we say let's upgrade it. We can always step back if we need to, but it seems like you like to upgrade faster than a lot of people, other than getting the performance benefits and stuff. Is why is that a thought? Why is that your philosophy?
So there's three reasons why I like to upgrade. There's three specific reasons, right? Number one, the actually main purpose of upgrading is to increase the morale of the team, because a team that is always continuously learning new things, unlike what a lot of see when a business person is looking at an engineering team, they see upgrade as a business risk. They say, "Oh, that's an unknown. What are we gonna do?" Right? But for engineers, that's super exciting. They get to go talk to other engineers and say, yeah, I am super excited about working in .NET 7 while everybody else is still working in .NET 6. So there is the spiritual aspect of it. The second aspect of it is the knowledge, learning new things, right? I want people to learn about C Sharp 11. I want them to learn about these latest and greatest technologies, because when you do that, you're automatically creating a team of, I know you love this word, a team of visionary vanguards that can actually teach people, moving forward. Be like, oh, we've been using .NET 7 with C Sharp 11 for like 2 months now. We can show you guys how to do it, right? The last thing is the physical impact, which is performance, security patches, being able to kind of get things outside of the box. These are always the areas. Remember, I told you before the tri nature of everything. There's a spiritual and physical and intellectual aspect to everything. And that's basically where I'm headed when it comes to everything I say and everything I do and most of my decision making processes. Okay. So here's a project, Joshua. I hope you have Visual Studio Preview. If you don't, hit that download button real quick. Let's get that Iowa internet connection warm.
Yeah,
Warm
warm
up
it up.
these microchips. What's the temperature now in Iowa, Josh? Is it a little bit colder?
I, I I don't even look anymore. It makes me
Just
cold, but I
say
look it up on the
cold.
temperature. So
Just
I just
it's
stay I
cold.
stay inside.
It, we, so okay. So I'm gonna try to upgrade everything to .NET 7. Here's what I'm gonna do, guys. I'm gonna go here. I don't even know if BUnit will be able to, support that. So there's .NET 7 here. I haven't done this before. I haven't rehearsed this, so we'll see. I did the same thing to myself, with a backend project, Josh, just a couple of days ago, and it barfed. Like the entity framework just couldn't, support the scenario. And I just downgraded just the entity framework to .NET 6 and leveraged backwards compatibility in .NET 7, right? And kept everything else in .NET 7. I didn't get a performance improvement. I did not get any performance improvement, but maybe at some point in time, hopefully soon. So let's just upgrade all of these to .NET 7 like this. And let me just stabilize this project. This is really important to me that this project comes into a stable point. So I'm done. Okay, so everything now is upgraded. That's great. Let's go and rebuild this project and see what happens. Can we just upgrade and it just runs? Is that possible, Josh? What do you think about that? That's exactly
I've
what
seen it
just
happen
happened.
before. Oh wow.
So that's just the targeted framework. I didn't upgrade the actual libraries internally yet. So let's go upgrade the libraries internally. This is where you're gonna get some hassle. So let's see if that's true. So I'm gonna select include pre-release, and I'm gonna go to the update area, and I'm just gonna update everything, literally everything in here. So let's go.
So
Looks
while it's
like
going, so I asked that question because I noticed that, like, I mean, this is a good example. When you update to the latest version, you'll get performance increases, or you'll get access to the new, the new uh, versions, or like the new API, everything that's in the new features and stuff. But another thing that we saw, that specifically when we looked at Blazor, is if every version of, every time someone goes for front end components, or the UI kind of libraries or frameworks, you learn from the previous frameworks and stuff. So it's
hmm
not that Blazor was just this brand new thing. It was built on a bunch of leveraging of different technologies, but it also leveraged a lot of the existing familiarity of the .NET kind of ecosystem and stuff. So when we looked at Blazor, to me, I kind of describe it as the life cycles and the learning, that the what we've learned from React and some of the component based libraries, but then also the nice integration with WebSockets, and the tight integration with .NET. And because of that, like when we have the two projects separate, when you go to do an upgrade, you don't have to upgrade and like figure out how to do some weird interaction between React, or completely have it separated to where it's a client and a portal, or a client and a server and stuff, so that it has better integration, and it has those you're borrowing from the existing patterns, but you're taking advantage of the latest standards. And I just thought that was cool to touch on, is that you know it's a lot easier to continually upgrade and kind of stay on the front end than get too far back behind, and then you kind of feel stuck.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And by the way, the upgrade is done. All I really want to do is just upgrade also the version on .NET 7. So I'm gonna go here real quick and just show people, real quickly, where to get that version number from. Because remember how I was just telling you earlier, we changed how we, so .NET 7. So we changed how we generate our build steps, right? So let's just go to .NET 7 downloads in here. And do you see this version here? That's the version I care about. This is the one I want to generate in my build. So let's go back to the solution here. Josh, get ready. You better have preview because, Okay, so this is build, and then in program, look at this. I can just go into the version and put this to that version. That's all I have to do. And now I get to just run this guy. So here is debug. Actually, let me just set that guy as a startup project. And let me run this guy. I'll just pop up a window and kill it, and that's it. Now I have a file that's generated. Look at this YAML file that it generated. Well, it's not here yet. There it is. It just generated a YAML file for me with a new version. Just as
Oh,
simple as that.
nice.
Isn't that magic? So now I can go and just type this config upgrade to .NET 7, right? Yay. So let's go and push that. Let's go to I did add you as a collaborator on this repository, right, Joshua?
Yep.
Okay. So let's go into GitHub here. And where are we? Tarafu Web. Here's a PR. Cannot automatically merge. I didn't update my main. Okay, no problem. Let me go back to my, let's see what conflicts do we have. Did you know that you could just resolve conflicts on the fly just like that? You see this?
Yeah, that's crazy.
For real. See, so this guy is resolved. And then let's see what this guy is about. Main. Since I know that my upgrade is more recent than this one, I'm just gonna do this. So this guy is done, and just a, force of habit. Just, I like to, and then again, it's just a bunch of upgrades. So someone did do the upgrade to the libraries, to these libraries, but my upgrade is much more recent, even though I didn't really sync up with master or main branch. So this is done. So commit merge. Here we go. Okay, so the merge is done. How fast is that? The merge is just as simple as this, right? And now this pipeline is gonna pick up these changes, like because a part of my pull request is that I'm changing the pipeline, what task will execute. It's not going to pick up the one in master. It's going to pick up the one in the PR itself. How smart is that? That's pretty smart, right? Look, .NET version 7, right? And then I'm gonna talk to you after that about, how are we going to, implement the next feature. Like you already saw, you can, Stanislav before he had a baby, Stanislav, whatever you are, I know you're from Poland, so I hope you're fine, son. I know what's going on over there. So just take care of yourself. I know you'll be watching that stuff. But he basically went and built this listing of the posts. You and I need to kind of talk about how we gonna create a post, right? So he already went and built some interesting things. Like he went into, let me just show you, config, here's the portal. Let's go back to master or main. It's gonna take me a while to get used to this one, Joshua. Um, so here's a sync real quick. He went and built all the base components, like a dialog and a button and all that kind of stuff. Like if you look at the views and then bases, he has a dialog base in here with the button and everything, right? He already have a card base. He already have an image base. He built almost all the little components that we need to get started, basically. All right, let's just make sure that we merge this PR in first. Did I lose you there? Still with me?
Nope, nope. I'm watching.
Okay, let's
I
just
was
do
looking
this.
at the GitHub build and everything and stuff. So I'm in Visual Studio land. So everything's different on GitHub and stuff. So
Mhm.
this is kind of cool.
Did I tell you about this new thing that they have in GitHub where you can, let me show you an example. Like you're in this pull request right now. If you click dot, just the period button on your keyboard, inside that pull request like this, it will open up a code reviewer for you in VS Code.
What?
Love the expression on P. Look, here's your changes, and I can leave comments here on the fly. How cool is that? And you can get to change, like, I want to see it side by side or however you want to do it. Things have
Does it
moved.
allow you to? Does it? Have you seen where you can run a version of it like from that branch and whatnot?
Yeah,
Is
yeah.
that?
So this is the review version. Like you're just looking at the code, but look at this guy here on the side. You can actually create an instance
Okay.
and you can run it from the cloud, which
Yeah,
is
I forget
really cool. Mhm.
the thing that was before code spaces. There was an online IDE that was really cool that because you could be working on a branch and then someone says, "Hey, can you look at my PR?" And so then you go to their branch and then you click, load. It
Yep,
opens up in the editor and say you want to like check out the changes. Well, you don't want
yep,
to undo all the changes you've just done and stash everything and then get everything checked out and everything. You just click run and it runs their branch even if you have
yep.
your project running, and it just gives you an ability to check out the code and then also run it to see the changes because looking at a web browser and seeing the code and trying to understand what someone's been working on for the past day or so is not the most efficient way to do it. To be able to download, click a button, see it in the browser or in your editor. I mean, that's fantastic.
Yes, sir. And also the other thing I want to tell you about, it's serverless. Like when you spin up an environment, if you're not using it, you're not paying for it. In fact, actually, if you have,
Really?
yeah, in fact, actually, if you have the enterprise edition, you don't have to do nothing at all. So, okay, so this guy is done. I'm gonna close this task. This is an issue on GitHub. And now let's go back to our discussion. So we want to build a dialogue, Joshua. And this dialogue is gonna allow people to post a post to post,
Mhm.
right? Lucky for us, the back end of this thing is done. Thanks to Stanislav, Christopher, Dutui, and Ricardo Cruz and Mahdi. A lot of people just came in and they were like, we want to help out with this project. So if you look at our controllers on this side here, controllers, post controller, this post async. Funniest
Mhm.
one I saw so far. Post async.
Post.
Right? And it has all the little details handled. In fact, actually, if you go all the way back to Taarafu UI, I think they already also built the foundation services for it. So if you go back here and you go into views, look, there is not this one, not this views, services, post views. Look, the post view is already done. So all
Okay,
that you and
cool.
I really have to do is to literally call this add post async.
So it's magically built out from all the way from the back, and then
Mhm.
and we're coming in, and we just have to add that front later
Yep,
on. Very
not
cool.
magically, thanks to this guy. You know, he's a pretty hard working guy. He's actually I do like this guy a lot. I do like him a lot. He just had a baby, right? And he one of the most tenacious human beings I've ever seen. You know, he's a Polish guy that lives in Germany and he loves learning things, Josh. Yeah, at some point in time when he's, past the baby situation, I'm gonna introduce you to him. He's really good. I like that guy. I like him a lot.
Yeah, and I say magical because to me, I didn't write any code, and I obviously know that, but because he followed the standard, and because he's kind of left off, you can see the breadcrumbs, and there's
Yep,
no ambiguity. Like
yep.
it's very clear. A lot of times you jump into a project, you're like, okay, what's done, what's not, how do I navigate the code base and everything. But you can see exactly where he left off. You're like, oh, I just need to do this last piece. So it is kind of magical to come in and be like, I've never met him. I don't know, I've never talked to
But
him,
he's
but I
following
can
the
see exactly.
standard. So you
Yep.
can so just I see what Josh's trying to say. Okay, sorry Joshua, a little bit is still translating in here.
It's
But
late,
I also was taking a nap before this for some reason, so I drink coffee and then I take naps, believe it or not. Like I drink really heavy, strong Turkish coffee and then I just zonk out.
You got to have enough caffeine to be able to sleep, right? That's how it works.
So, so what Josh is talking about here is really amazing. Like, Josh never met Stanislav. Never, not even once. He never talked to him. He never even saw him until this moment, right? But both of them know the standard. So that makes Josh easily able to just come in and pick up where Stanislav left off and run with it. Imagine if you are in a team where the people that are joining the team are writing pull requests from day one. How crazy is that, Josh? Is that possible? So you don't
Yeah,
want to
yeah.
sit, you don't want people to sit around, setting up their environments for 3, 4, 5 days, 2 weeks? No?
Well, I mean, this scenario too. I mean, we've worked together before, but now I see you showing me some updates and stuff. I'm like, there are changes in the standard and like how you guys are doing things, but there's only a little bit to learn
Yep,
to understand how to go. So I haven't worked with you for a couple of months now. We're jumping back into a project. I'm gonna take over, a bit of code that another developer worked on, but it's as if we just worked together yesterday
yep,
because now it's all the same idea. So if this is my day one, which is it is, I've basically just cloned the project and going. We can add to it day one, not have to like trace through and see how everything's going. Because you
yep,
say everything up until the service is done, I know exactly what he's written. I know the exceptions. I know the folder layout. I know how it's named, the naming conventions and stuff. So and I know that without even looking, there's test, which is amazing to be able to just know that there's tests behind it and stuff.
yep.
So this is I just wanted to brag a little bit on the standard and
There's
how cool
only
it is.
there's only 87 of them.
Only, yeah.
87 tests, and there's only a timeline. That's all the feature that's in there.
Yeah, I was
And
gonna
then
say you just got started, so 87 tests. I mean, that means there's a lot of coverage already and stuff. So,
yeah, yeah.
so does
Okay.
those test things slow you down though? I mean, why like why would you waste your time writing test?
Oh, why would I waste my time writing tests? This little upgrade that you and I just did,
Mhm.
if I didn't have all these tests, I have absolutely no idea. How
So if someone
crazy is
said that
that?
you don't need test and you don't it's okay it just slows you down, but then you don't have all these tests and you go to upgrade it. You're running the risk of your project just maybe just breaking just because you upgraded the library, right? So but now
Yep.
you know it's going to work, right?
And I also think some people said tests are like documentation for the code. I like that because the code itself is not going to tell you, but your unit tests, the method itself will say should verify profile if exists and return true if there are changes in the profile. So you're literally saying why you're returning true when first name does not equal last name because you're verifying the changes in that profile. So I heard this a while back. I remember it was who was that guy at John Deere that we all loved, the older one, anyway, some guy at John Deere, that he really loved Java a lot. He liked to write back end software and stuff like that. And, he's a pretty cool guy. And he would even set up meetings and say an old man's rant, and he would start talking about Java stuff. couldn't care less about Java, but I really liked the guy and I was just listening to whatever he has to say. And this is just something for people like if you end up in a team where they're not working with your preferred programming language, wait a while, see what you can extract out of this. A lot of the concepts that I'm actually using in this, I learned while writing Scala. I learned Josh will bring in some concepts coming from React, right? And that's the idea when you're a software engineer, you're growing beyond the technology and you're trying to find good patterns out there in the universe and trying to implement that, like this tri nature of things. That's just the universal theory that I came up with, and now it's really fundamentally injected into every single design system design that I'm working on. Here's what we're gonna do, Josh. We're gonna need to write a little dialogue, and we're gonna go slow because I want people to see how these things work, right? I really like, so forget a little bit about that crazy stuff that we do when we're just on one-on-one and there's no camera rolling, going really, really fast like this. Let's spill it out. Okay, let's spill it out for people. So I'm gonna create a new branch in here real quick. There is users, Hassan, Habib,
So if we're
components.
going slow, so you normally when we're going back and forth and everything, it's almost like a competition to see if you can go fast. Not going so fast, but we've definitely had times where we go fast enough. Like you're paying attention. Did you catch what's going on? Like
Yeah,
you're trying to think a step ahead. If we're going
yeah.
to kind of like look at this from a kind of a whole, the step back perspective, do we want to start with a branch or do we need to have like your diagrams to be able to walk through the scenarios? Like, are we going to consider
I love it.
validation? Are we going to exception handling? Like, I guess, do we
I
need to give
love it.
people a perspective of what we're actually doing? So you said a dialogue, but anybody can make a dialogue. But how do we make a dialogue great again?
Okay, sounds good. Let's do that. I'm gonna go into the draw IO here, and let's just explain what this is like. So we want to build a dialogue,
Mhm.
and this dialogue is really simple. It just has a simple text box in here, really just a text box and a button. That's all that there is. And this button says, post. So a simple dialog with a button that says post, and we really want to do, we want to basically send a signal to a view service, and this view service will be able to go and say, okay, whatever you posted in here, I'm going to handle it. So this is going to go to post view service, post view service, and the post view service will kind of try to turn this view model into a primitive or native API model. So that's going to be post service. And then the post service is going to hand it over to post API broker. That's all that it is. So this dialog, it's going through a couple of iterations. One iterations we're massaging the data a little bit and we're picking up the post view and we're going and saying, I want to be able to send this through the API. The API is something we also own, right? So that's going to be the core API, the external API that we're working with, which we can run end to end. We already verified that this thing is running. We also want to introduce people to acceptance tests through Blazor. Josh, I heard some people talk about Playground and stuff like that. So I want to build something similar to Selenium, but in C Sharp.
Mhm.
Do you want to help me out with that one? Do you think you can
Of
help me out
course,
with that one? You
we,
know,
we, we want to make
you
sure
know
we don't use
Selenium
the
very
name
well,
Selenium. Yeah, yeah.
and we can call it Selenium Sharp.
Oh,
Let's
wonderful.
call, can we call it Shilenium? I haven't,
Check with
I
the
haven't,
lawyers.
I haven't, I haven't really explored playgrounds yet, but I hope it needs to follow the same pattern that I'm trying to do. By the way, just so you understand, I can write acceptance tests today, but they will run in the phantom space. It's
Mhm.
not going to spin up a dialogue and you'll actually see things going on. Why are these things important anyway, Joshua? Like, why? Like, genuinely, I'm asking. I really want to know. Why do you want to see the dialogues popping up and all that kind of stuff?
Well, so I mean, we have our different layers of testing, right? So we have our unit tests, which are like all the different possibilities of like an individual component. We have our integration test, which is going to be like maybe when I click the post button, I want to make sure that the data is actually getting to the broker, or actually calling the API. But when we get to the level of acceptance test, we're testing a couple different things. One, we're testing, we want to look like a an actual user. So like if especially with Selenium, that was really good about like moving your mouse in different directions. Like you might click post, but it might be 15 seconds before you are done typing, or maybe you click it 3 times instead of once, or there's all these different randomizations or these different things that you do that as a user. And most importantly, it's actually running in the browser, because there's a
Mm-hmm.
lot of problems that our C sharp application will work just fine, but something about that browser connection to where the code, it just that's where things blow up, and it's not necessarily our framework, or it's not necessarily the browser, it's
Just
just
a,
a combination.
it's just
So
a combination.
if we can
Ah,
run that Selenium test, or that kind of acceptance level test in Edge and IE and Chrome and Safari and all these different environments, we get that user level testing end to end from all the different combinations. And so it's utilizing our exercise in our unit tests, our integration tests, our acceptance tests, and at the end of the day, it just gives you confidence that, hey, we're shipping this out. And if
it
you ever do
works.
get a
Yeah.
yeah, if you do get a report that something's not working right, you mentally can just offload so many things. You're like, well, what version of the browser, all those things go to the side, because you've tested it. So now you say, okay, well, where are the gaps, because you can't cover 100%, but
Mm-hmm.
where could it possibly go wrong? Or maybe a lot of times what happens is, it's not necessarily, if you have that much coverage, it's not your test failing or your software failing, it's a use case that you didn't think of. So
Mm.
we're actually going to go right into the use cases and stuff. So we're doing a post, so we're not pulling anything back
Nope.
from the API yet. But do we need to, we need to know, if we send information, we know it needed to handle probably an error case, like what happens if for some reason it comes back, whatever. Do we, what's about like
That'd be
lazy loading, or
like a
yeah,
sandwich kind of thing. Yeah. So there is validation on spot, which you can display an error in the dialog itself. Let's do this
mhm.
in the next session, Joshua. Let's just
Okay,
focus on hitting the happy path. You're writing some
so
data, click post, hits the API, and we're done.
sounds great.
Uh, So here's what I'm gonna do here. I'm gonna try to leverage this amazing dialogue that Stanislav, put together for us. I really love that you brought this up. This is someone you never met, yet you can still build on top of what he was building. That's pretty cool. By the way, you guys, Stanislav is not off the project. He's just taking vacation, to take care of baby stuff. Okay, so let's say post dialogue. Post dialogue. And let's go inside that post dialog and create our Blazor component. So sorry, this guy should be post dialogs because it is a namespace. And then I'm gonna go into this guy. By the way, StreamYard um, doesn't show the pop-up screen for whatever reason. And also because of the large screen that I'm using, I'm also only focusing on Visual Studio and it's seeing a different screen in a different way. Okay, I'm gonna clear this out. There's nothing here, but I want to build the back end of the front end. Is it right to call the backend file, the C# file that we have here as a back end of front end, this little C# file that we put behind? Is that okay, Joshua, or what do you think?
Sure, sounds great. So
Okay,
I mean, we could put this C sharp code and everything we're going to put in here. It could be also in your Razor page, but I think we've just found that if you keep your markup in your Razor page and then your C sharp in a separate file, it's cleaner. The
yep.
editor seems to do the IntelliSense a little bit better, and it also removes the scary abstraction from CSS, because the C sharp people want to be in C sharp, right?
That's right. I asked Sanderson, Steve Sanderson. I said to him, what do you think about this obtrusive, unobtrusive? He said, do whatever makes sense to you. And that's what a library designer would say. Like if you're
Mm-hmm.
developing a framework, you want everybody to use it. You don't want to dictate a certain standard or a certain way things are supposed to be implemented. In fact, actually, he said something hilarious. He said, if I see someone telling me to do something in one way, I'm gonna go do the opposite. Just because, right? So I do understand that in terms of framework, but if you're building an enterprise application, you have to have a standard. You have to.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
I love
you're gonna. Mhm.
I love that it gives you the flexibility. You can define
Yeah.
it in the file. You can define it in a code behind file. It allows you
Hmm.
to, whether you're coming from the, the separation where, the old style of binding things in a separate file, or if you want to have everything in one component, it gives you the flexibility and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's pretty cool that it supports both cases. So
Okay, Josh, where do we start? We should probably start by defining, states for this guy and also dependencies. So we can go here and say inject, right, prop, and this is I post view service. So that's the service that we're going to be using. So that's post view service. And this is the only link. I want you guys to think about components as a hybrid between a controller and an API in a way that it's only calling one service and it's not doing any business logic, but it does UI logic. What that basically means is that you're going to find functions in that component that we put in a delegation to go execute, and we can test that it's actually making that side effect. Like when you're clicking post, like if you look at the dialogue that Stanislav built in here, you will notice that he's giving me here a pretty neat action parameter that I can pass in so I can execute, whatever I want to happen when the call occurs, the API call occurs. And we can also test that. But I also want to explore this stubbing idea that Eagle Hansen implemented. I need to bring that guy on the podcast sometime, because I'm interviewing a lot of people. We'll see if I can bring him in as well. So, okay, so I have the dependency. That's the first thing. And then I want to define the state. I'm going to go into the models here. And then under views, components, I'm going to go here and create my own post dialogues. And I'm going to just do something very similar to this. Josh, I decided to separate the states. You're not going to ask me why?
no, I thought we've already done that. We've separated out states,
Okay, post
right?
dialogue. Yeah, component
Or did you
state.
separate them out even more?
No, no, no. I'm creating a state. Like every component will have its own enum for states.
Yeah. Yep. That makes
You're,
sense to me.
so for people watching us, originally when Josh and I started doing that stuff, we used to say, oh, just have one model and have all the components use the same model. But I discovered while loading content error is great, there's actually other states that may pop up, like submitted, you
Uh,
know. What do you think about that? See, I evolved a lot. I take the ideas and I run with it, right? There's
so would the
also,
submitted be in this same enum, or would you split it out into a different?
no, it's the same because the
Okay.
component has its own enum, right? And also this one, check out this one, waiting response. So this is not loading. Loading is different. Waiting response is going to display something else. So this is very flexible now. We can put in whatever we need.
Okay. So the concept of the idea behind loading content errors. Say you have a drop down menu on your you have a form. We have a drop down, but we don't yet have the options like what should be in that drop down. So if you're searching for something or whatever and stuff, to autocomplete, we can hit that API and everything and stuff. So we usually had loading. The component is loading on the page, or if it's ever in a loading state. So you did some action, whether it required to the user to wait. We have content, which means everything's loaded. We can present it to the user, and then error obviously is something went wrong or we need more validation and stuff. But what you're saying is that not only do we have these basic states, we actually have any state machine state that the component might need. So if you submit, you can actually, so content would be the dialog loads on itself. But submit
Hmm.
means you've already wrote a comment out, you submit it because it's not an error, there was no error, and it's submitted. It's already that action completed. So now you can display something else on the screen based on this state, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Hmm.
like it.
You think it's a good idea?
Yeah, it's very declarative. It's and this is where like if we do that React style comparison, this is
Hmm.
very much like the kind of almost Saga Redux deal. Is
Hmm.
that we fired off an action and then we are going to say our current state is content. We hit post. We're probably going to be in loading state for a little bit, but as soon as loading state finishes, we're now in the submitted state. So now that we'll have the any information that came back from our API will also trigger a submitted state. and now the UI gets to determine what should I show differently now that I've been submitted. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
the input boxes still has the content in the input, but now it's disabled because you've submitted, but you still want to show it on the screen for some reason, or whatever the kind of business logic is. But it sounds like it has that kind of state machine that allows you to do whatever the business is asking you to do. Right?
Yep. Yep.
I like it.
Okay. All right. So you're gonna here and go and say post dialog component state, and I'm just gonna call this state. So we have this guy. We also want to initialize this guy here as well. We want to go and say dialog base. So that's our dialog base, and that's here our dialog. Okay. The dialog itself is neat. It's using Syncfusion, so you can just pass the function to it outside of the box.
Hmm.
And there's no uninitialize in here because you're not really doing you're not really loading anything. Not just yet, right? Okay,
Our
Joshua.
dialog base is our wraparound sync fusion, so it's just the direct calls. But
Yep.
this is our kind of abstraction from we know that sync fusion works and we know that our service works, but this is going to control all of our life cycles and all of our click events and be a kind of a interface and broker between those two components, right?
Yep. And I think we probably need another one in here, Joshua, which is the um, is visible, right?
Okay.
Because we want to click a button and control that at some point in time, right? So we're gonna keep that in there. Okay, great. Let's go write a test for that. Wow, we're gonna write tests? What's that all about, Joshua? Is this how we do this? We write tests like maniacs? Is that what it is? Okay. So this is post dialogues, and I think I call, yeah, post dialogues, and then in here I'm gonna say post dialog component tests.cs. That's my guy. It's public partial. Why do we partialize this stuff? This is crazy, man. Test fixture. So partialization here, we're leveraging, sorry, is it test context? Sorry, yep.
So
Um,
partial. You want to explain it, or do you want me to?
you do. Go ahead, go ahead.
So test context allows you to kind of group the similar tests together and kind of have that set up. So if there's going to be some dialogue test context or certain areas, you can kind of have it grouped together and kind of have the inherit from a base. So that way you don't have a bunch of um, redundant code in each file as you go through, but it allows you to share that common configuration and service. Did I remember that right, or am I off?
Yeah, yeah. So it allows you to kind of break down. So we know for a fact, we know this for a fact. We know that, if your code exceeds 200 lines of code or so, nobody's gonna read that. Nobody's gonna read that, right? Do you remember files that had 27,000 lines of code in them? 27,000 lines of code in them, right? That's just adult abuse, to do something like that. But also at the same time, we want to make sure that um, we want to break our logic based on responsibility. So we're going to have exceptions. We're going to have in the tests here, though, however, we handle different scenarios. So there's logic, exceptions, validations. There's no validations on the component because it doesn't really do any business logic on its own. We delegate that unless there's absolutely a necessary, scenario where you have to do that, which I haven't ran into yet. So until I do, just continue to, do it this way. So this is post dialog, post dialog rendered
Another
component.
great thing about the partial classes is that the once you set up your first one, then as you go to commit a new, your new feature or new PR, then as a PR reviewer, you know
Mhm.
that they're not doing anything weird. They're using the existing context, and then you get to see a much smaller file and see exactly what they're testing, and you don't have to review a lot of the the, like what is different about this test versus all the others. And those like minor differences can be, how you randomize your test and everything and stuff can actually cause some bugs that, like, the tests run longer or whatnot and stuff. So it
Mhm.
allows you to say, okay, this is there, it's another component in the UI. It falls in this family. It's going to be have the same context and setup as everything else. And here is what the developer is very concerned about, is these specific scenarios. Just makes it easier to comprehend, review. It just makes your code a lot easier to read. But
A lot simpler, a lot easier to read. Absolutely. Okay, let's do this. Let's go here and say this dot services, right? We want to add this service as if we're running the application, right? And then there is add transient, right? I don't know. Here we go. Dependency injection, add transient, and then here's your service. And then I want to go here and say this dot, post view service mock dot object. That's my service. Here it is. So that's one. Did we go over 120? No, I think we're fine. And then what else do we want to do here? So until we figure out the stubbing for now, I'm just gonna go here and say dot services dot add sync fusion. We're gonna have to investigate that sync fusion Blazor, which is this guy, as if we're initializing. And also I think we have the services dot add options part.
in
And
the
then
AdSync
there,
Fusion Blazor, oh sorry,
go ahead. No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say the AdSync Fusion Blazor. What that does is it actually stubs out Sync Fusion. So Sync Fusion, when it loads in the browser, will set up all these like JS calls and callbacks and everything and stuff. So in our test, you'll get some JavaScript errors or whatnot. If you're using Sync Fusion, you're writing tests, and all of a sudden you're getting this weird like JavaScript can't inject things or whatever. That's where this services AdSync Fusion Blazor comes in. It just stubs all those things, and so by default, if you want to get really nerdy, is if you call a function in JavaScript on the interop, it returns a numerical one or zero of whether it was failure or success. And so what it does is all the Sync Fusion life cycles that are depending on those callbacks, it just stubs them out and says, like we'll see, we'll provide it. That's what this loose does. If since we're
Mm-hmm.
not explicitly providing a stub function for our JavaScript to return, it's just going to
Mm-hmm.
return as like you called into the component, we're calling JavaScript, but we're just going to pretend that it was successful. And in this case, that's great because we know Sync Fusion is a trusted library. We know that it's working correctly. We want to test our component, not have to worry about Sync Fusion's components. So that's why we're adding the Sync Fusion service and then mocking the JS interop. It allows us to focus on our components, right?
Thank you, Joshua. Exactly, exactly. Okay, let's take this guy here and I'm gonna, paste, a copy of it. And now we're gonna render the base scenario, like the basic scenario where we go and say, okay, everything should be at a null state, right? Eagle Hansen asked me this question, why are you doing that? Like, what are you doing that for? And my answer was, so this public void should initialize component. So my answer was, you know, anybody can slip in a default value. What if someone is going up here and said, okay, I'm gonna set up the state by default to be content like this? Your test is not gonna catch that, you know? This is where your enterprise kind of experience coming and build, you know, developing software is great, but unless you're building an end-to-end project that you're passionate about, none of that matters. It'll continue to be like this guy on Reddit, he was saying something like, these tutorials are kiddie tutorials. You want to see some enterprise stuff? Go watch Hassan's, videos. It's true. It's true. I'm just trying to bring you the stuff that I do on a daily basis. That's how I build my own software. Okay, so let's go here and type in post dialog component state. And this is, expected state. And that state's supposed to be by default the loading piece, right? And I'm gonna go here and say var initial post dialog component, and here new initial, sorry, post dialog. So I'm just gonna call it initial post dialog like this. And then let's see. I want to go here and say initial post dialog dot state should, what? We don't have no, we do. Yeah, should be Expected state. What do you think about this new autocomplete thing? It's insane, man, right? So the service should be null, right? Because not we initialized nothing, not just yet. And then also initial dialog dot dialog, which is the post. Let's see, dialog should be null, right? And then what else did we add in there? The is visible. Initial
Yep.
dialog dot is visible should be false.
This is actually just a really simple example of where it makes sense to set up the initialized component. So if by default you passed in a variable or you initialize it differently, there might be a scenario as you're clicking around the page or the page loads, the dialog pops up immediately. Well, that's
Hmm.
no one likes to have pop-ups immediately on their page when they're just trying to look for something. And so this really pins down to make sure that this dialog is only going to be shown in the case that you want it to be shown.
Yeah.
Therefore, it's going to have the correct state and it's going to be visible only when you call it.
Yes, sir. So this guy is a pass, right? Do you want to try to do the failing test?
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm pushing this into a branch, Joshua. So here's a new branch. So users Hassan Habib slash components slash dialog slash dash dash post dash dialog. Okay, and then here we go, my friend. Let fly. All you
Okay.
now.
So let me do some my fetch, and then we'll see if so we
You
have.
you might need Visual Studio Preview, just FYI.
Yep. I think I'm on it. We'll see. There
2020.
should be. Yeah.
Okay, Joshua.
Um, we're fetching. We're fetching. I see remote. I see the post dialog. There we go. So now let me share my screen. That'd
Go
probably be
for
important. Share screen. Okay. You can see everything?
I can see you.
Awesome. Okay. So I just did a pull. So I'm on this branch. Let's go ahead and pull.
Thank you so much for increasing the resolution. Josh is using one of those actual Mac. What are they? 5K, Josh? Is that what you're using
Yep.
right now? So he's
Yep. The
using a
ultra.
5K, the ultra wide.
It's not ultra wide, but it's ultra fine. So it's the Retina display that it can go up to 5K and stuff. So
Do
everything's
you
so
wanna
big on my computer. What's
do you
that?
wanna flip the camera to show people how crazy it looks? Hold on.
Oh, I don't know if I
You
can do
can't.
that. And everything's all wired in.
Yeah, that's okay. Don't worry about it. Let's go back to the
Okay.
code. Go ahead,
So we
Josh.
have we have uh it should have a failing test, right? Is that right?
No, because I
No,
already
no,
did
that's
this.
right. Okay. Yes. Okay. So now I got to write the failing test. That's right.
Ideally, I should give you a failing test, but because I did the setup and the initial test, go for it. Or do you want me to write the
Okay.
failing test? Mhm.
No. Well, what do we want the first failing test to be?
So it's really simple. We want to be able to say if you click the is open is open or open functionality. So we want to implement an open functionality that when it's clicked, it will display the dialog. We're going through that scenario step by step, right? Like we
Yep.
want to offer an API capability that says, yeah, open that dialog right now, right? And I think
So
probably the dialog base, yeah, should display a dialog if open dialog is clicked. Hmm. That's
okay.
it. Okay. So we
Okay.
need a
So now
function.
we
Let's go write that function first. Let's go into the component and write that function called open dialog.
okay.
Maybe at some point in time, we're gonna need to kind of, allow that open dialog to have an override so it can display whatever, but let's just start with that. And that guy's throw
Okay.
is
So
not implemented into exception. Row new, not implement. What
There you
happens
go.
if you type this in NIE? See what it does.
Oh, you got fancy things. I was gonna say the new IntelliSense. I was hoping it would just NIE.
And then control period and see what it does. Ah,
Nope.
dumb. Okay,
Okay.
that's right. Not implemented exception.
Not implemented exception. I wonder if it'll do it once
Nope,
once you have
because you
the
don't have the
import.
reference. Nope.
Okay. Okay. So this is
Fat
throwing them
arrow
in
width.
that.
Fat arrow width, please, Josh.
So this will be the.
Mhm.
Okay. What's it telling me?
No, you don't need an input parameter or anything. Just fat arrow the from open dialog the method. Like remove these input
Ah.
parameters.
Yeah.
No. Just after open dialog, instead of having this method being scoped, just fat arrow it.
I gotcha. See, I've been in JavaScript
You've been in
world.
JavaScript for a while. JavaScript will ruin your brain.
Okay, we don't want a message. We just wanted to just
Yeah,
simplify the because it's a one liner, so we're gonna
yeah,
have fat arrow only when we want to have multi lines. So we want to go to our deal. Gotcha.
that's
So
right.
okay, so now if we go back to our test here, so now we want to actually render it. And since I've been in a different world, it's been I haven't. Uh,
So number
so we're gonna
one, so number one, we want the state of your dialog to be content because
yep,
you already said I want to be visible, right? And number
yep.
two, let's go ahead and say this dot rendered dialog component. Mhm, mhm, mhm. So instead of var initial dialog, it's gonna be this dot rendered dialog. Yeah, post dialog rendered component equal and then render component. Do you remember?
Yep.
And then
So
we're
we
just
just should.
gonna uh, and then we want to pass that type to it. So that render, yep, exactly. No, just as a generic type.
Let me look at one of the other examples real quick.
Yeah, if you look
It's
at
been
the
a minute.
timeline, if you look at the timeline, see how we're passing it as as a generic type. Look,
Yeah, okay, that's where I
yeah,
knew we were gonna render it as I thought at one point we had a new or like we had to render it as like a little bit different syntax. Okay, so now we're on the same page. Okay, so now we're rendering that component, and so now all of these are going to be we're gonna have to
we're just gonna need to verify. So the first thing,
yeah,
instead of initial dialog, you want to pull in. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Control Z, and then Alt and select all of them at once. Yeah, what's an alt on a Mac machine? That's an interesting question.
we'll just do that for now.
All right, and then dot instance. So you're gonna need
Yep.
to say dot instance dot, yeah, uppercase I. Wow, JavaScript really, brainwashed you. Let's
It's
go.
a problem. This is
Crazy
what your
problem.
brain looks like on JavaScript. Okay.
Okay. Expected state, your post view service is not null anymore, so should not be null. And also, of course, this test will fail because we didn't do anything, right? Some of these things will pass, but some of it will not. But there's something really important there. In addition to you validating that your instance.dialog is not supposed to be null, you also want to say, what the state is. So you see, okay, you verified. So you see line 45, you want to say post view service should not be null, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay,
Okay.
so
So
we
we
know that this.
have
Mhm.
our state, we have our service. The dialog, it should
not be
Also
null.
not be null. Yep.
But there's an additional validation here. You want to go and copy that exact line. So there's Control D, and then we want to do dialog dot and see what comes out of it.
Okay.
So do you see like visible or showing or anything at all?
It's visible.
Yep, that should be true.
Oh, look at that autocomplete. There you go.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And then is visible on our side is also reflecting the same status. I don't even know if we need, well, you need to expose it to the outside world somehow. Okay, so they can check the status and know whether it's visible or not. That's fine. Okay, run your test. I guess that's that.
So this dialog is visible. That's the component telling you that it's visible, and this is visible as our state. Is that right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All right.
And ideally, if
Now,
we stop this thing, we shouldn't have to worry about that. Make sure your app settings.development JSON is not included in this.
ooh,
Yep,
okay.
yep,
Then I'll go back. I have my work email, so let's go ahead and change that setting real quick. So we'll
yeah.
do manage remotes, which will then go over here, and we'll just change this guy to
Just the
my silly
normal.
Gmail. Yep.
So that's where you're doing it from. I do it the old school get dash dash config user.email.
I used to do that, but then I'm using Visual Studio, so you got to be on brand. You got to use the
Y- y-
interface, right?
You guys know what's crazy? Like literally some 7 or 8 years ago, I was Mr. Dialogue guy and Josh McCall was Mr. Terminal guy. And now just things just changed. All right, just give me the code. Let's go.
Okay, so we're doing commit all and push.
All right, thank you,
Okay.
sir. My turn? Is it my turn? Is that what it is? Okay. Let's go here. Let's do the synchronization. This guy's already doing state has changed because he tested it. That son of a gun tested it himself, so he knows that this is what we're trying to accomplish here. I don't know why StreamYard is flickering the... Josh, did you push stuff?
It says
Joshy,
failed to push. Uh-oh.
are you for real?
Yeah.
Okay,
What's this about?
what's it
Can I
saying?
not push?
Huh.
See the output. We're looking at the output.
Hmm. Huh.
Where is the output?
You are a contributor to this repository, right? Let
I
me
thought
take
so.
a look. Collaborators, login. You're not actually.
Oh,
Oh, did I send you an invitation or did I not
of
never
course.
add you?
No, we accepted it.
Okay, so what's
Interesting.
what's what's your username on
Josh Paul
GitHub?
221.
That's the username? Okay. All
Yep.
right. So I just sent you an invitation to taarafu.web. Just accept it. That's all.
See, we weren't lying. This is first day.
This is for real. This is the real deal. Real deal. Let's go, son. Mm. Are you
When are
happy
you
to
gonna?
hang out with me again and write code with me? Is that what you're saying?
Of course, yes.
I'm happy
All
to.
right. So now we'll go. I mean, what's day one? We'll check with me on day two or day three, but
So, wait, wait till things get a little bit more serious. I'll be like, let's go, sweetheart. Buddy,
Yeah.
buddy. All right, you're good. Are you able to push now?
No, it's not
So, so,
going.
so you accepted the invitation, right?
Yes.
Okay. Now, this next question is going to be very important, and I want you to think about it deeply. Do you know how to use GitHub?
Evidently not. Get
Josh McCall have been
dash
using
dash
GitHub before I used GitHub. I'll tell you that much. Hmm.
get config dash.
Wow,
Beautiful.
you're going old school. You're going full
Yeah,
on.
I'm on the command line now, so it is my email address, so
Is it
it
your
should be
username
just
though?
fine.
Is it your
Yep,
username?
the Josh McCall 221 at Gmail, so that should go. Let me just
Oh,
push from the command line. So hit push.
yep.
It says access denied. Um, am
Huh. It
I
doesn't say that you
on?
accepted the invitation.
Oh, I did too. Do you allow? I can share my screen and show you, but
No, I believe
oh,
you.
I don't think you do. I don't. Does it say that I'm a contributor now?
No, it's just saying awaiting Josh McCall response. Maybe it's queued up somewhere, but here it is. Here's what I'm seeing. Let's just so you understand. There it says pending invite. Copied.
Hmm. I
I'm
wonder.
gonna s-
Let's see.
I'm gonna send it to you in the chat so you know. Huh? Here. See, all you have to do is just click on that, I think.
And it is for the web project. I just went and I'm accepting you one more time.
Yeah.
Okay, now it says it's good.
Now
I'm
I
good.
see you. Now I see you.
Come on, GitHub, making me, why are you doing me dirty like that? Okay, wonderful. It pushed. Okay, first stage jitters. Okay, Felicia Cole.
Josh, the question is, all right, let's sync this up and let's do. This is really we're not scripting this, you guys. I swear, this is the first time Joshua is doing this, and
First time ever touching a keyboard.
he's also coming out really rusty. Like he just been away for a while, so we're not. This is the real deal. If we're gonna get stuck, we're gonna solve it live in front of everybody because that's how we do it, right, Josh? Okay,
Of course.
so let me try to fix this. I'm sorry, brother. Go ahead. You were saying.
No, I just said of course. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna go here and say, okay, well, the solution for this really is simple. I can just go and say dialog dot, is visible equal true. Right? Now this style here is bad. Why is that? Because you're not supposed to be setting properties on a components like this on the fly. So I'm gonna change something in Stanislav implementation. Oh, he already have something called show. Good job. Yeah, he did the right thing. So this is dot show. Good job. Good job. Yeah, I like that guy. I do like him a lot. He's smart. Okay. And he already have the state and everything going on behind the scene. But from our side, Josh, that's not enough, is it? Because we need to go here and say, show the dialog, but not just that. I also want you to set that is visible state to be the same as the dialog state. Should I
Mhm.
control it this way or should I, yeah, let's run the test. Let's see what it says. Here we go. We have an error. Let's see what it is. It's saying expected enum to be content. I forgot to change the content as well, and that will require this override on initialize. See why unit tests are amazing, man. That's the thing. It'll tell you, listen, you promised me that you're gonna visualize things, and here you are not visualizing things. The content like this. Otherwise, the whole component would be in a loading state in a way, right? Okay, let's run this. Let's try this again. This should still fail. Do you know why? Because you forgot to call it. This dot post dialog render component dot instance dot show open dialog. You have to
Ah,
call
okay.
that guy, right? So now let's run this. So both of us were asleep, like Shri says. We both were asleep. Okay, let's make this happen. Okay, what else do we have? See, we're debugging as
Well, we
we
have a
go.
service, right?
Yeah, but the service doesn't matter. Let's see why this guy is mad. This guy is saying that this is another amazing aspect of this. I never initialized the dialogue,
Oh,
right?
nice.
See, that's this driven development for you. You're gonna forget things. You will forget things here, like this. That should do the trick. Here you go. See that because we forgot the UI, something broke in and I think I need a using in here, using um, uh, what is the namespace where this guy has. It looks like the preview version is still struggling a little bit with visualization of the markup, but it is also asking me for an update, so that's good news, right? Okay, what is this guy
It's already
saying?
fixed.
It's already fixed.
Yeah.
All right, let's see. This guy should go green now. There you go. How amazing is that? Test driven, right? We're gonna forget things. You will forget things. And this guy is just doing it like that, outside of the box. So I can
Let's go back
mark
to the
them.
component real quick though, because
You bet. Mhm.
and the code
Back
behind the
end.
C# part of the component. Yeah. So the view service, because we're okay, we didn't have to initialize it because we're injecting it, and we're injecting the mock service. So by the time we actually render the component, that's when it injects the
Hmm.
service. We didn't have to do anything different
Yep.
from the service. Okay.
There's also a capability that we're gonna need to add in that dialog that already is offering us this click capability, and you inject an action into it, and you mimic that. So we're literally doing that wrapping that we do with foundation services with brokers. We're doing it exactly here with components and base components. I love that concept. It's consistent, it's clean, it allows people to kind of wrap their heads around the idea. Now, I'm just gonna submit this, but I want to test it in real time. What do you think about that? So this is pass. I'm just gonna do something really simple. I'm gonna go into the index page in here, and I'm just gonna initialize this components, this post dialog, right? So views components dot post dialog, and I think that means that this guy should be web dot views dot components dot I think post dialogs. There we go. Post dialogs. So this will make this guy make sense a little bit, right? And now I want to go on the back end of this guy and mimic the open dialog outside of the box. You know what I mean? So I want to go here and say, okay, so here's your prop. This is just for testing. We already are done with our task. I just want to see what it looks like. Post dialog like this. Come on. We broke Visual Studio, Josh. Just doesn't want to talk to us anymore. Be like, what is this sorcery that you guys doing? And then on initialize, override on initialized, I can go here and say this dot dialog dot open dialog, something like that. I wonder if it will complain about, yeah, so this is ref. I don't think we need that anymore because I already have the stuff. So this is dialog. Okay, so technically if I run this, it should just pop the dialog, whatever
Yep.
that dialog is. Let's see if that's true. Is it true, Josh? Is that what it is? Let's see.
We shall
Oops.
see.
It's running something else. Hold on. Let me set this as startup project.
I used to work with a guy that we would go back and forth and we test everything and stuff, and then we would go to click the button, and we would make a bet like what do we think is going to happen, and it was really fun when we would like be tracking down bugs. We're like, I just made this change. What do you think would
Mm.
happen?
The hy
So if
the
we bet
hypo
there,
the hypothesis game. I think you're gonna need to do this on after render. Why? Because on initialize the component is not there yet, right? On
we could also put a
after
button on the screen to click on to open up the dialog. But
we could do that, but that would be Josh thing to do. I don't do that sorcery. So on after render, right? So I can run again and see if that works. I think Stanislav was trying to test it the exact same way, and I said to him, listen, brother, you can't. You're gonna have to wait until it renders first, right? So let me just see if I can run this. I know you're not able to see, but here's a dialog, my friend. Check this out. You see it? It's
oh, look at
crappy,
that, beautiful.
but it's there, right? So every time you refresh, it's gonna pop our dialog. The
Yep.
button has nothing in it, which brings me to this new thing where I want to go and say, I'm gonna just add this just for funsies. I really want you to have this here. Normally, you guys, the index page, since you're still during development, it doesn't really matter what's in there. You're just testing with whatever component you have running. So here's one for you, Joshua, and then we're gonna wrap, okay? I'm gonna give you a failing test and you're gonna make it pass and then we're gonna wrap. Sounds good to you? So
Sounds good.
this dot post dialog component dot instance dot dialog dot button title, right? And I hope he set up a did he not set up a way to set the button title? Ah, okay, Stanislav. Let's do that. Let's go here. So this is the button title, right? And it's a parameter. That's right. Okay. No, he did the right thing. I'm doing the wrong thing. So there's the title is visible, and then there's button title as an input parameter. And all I have to do here is just verify that the button title should be post. Just all uppercase post like this. And I'm gonna let you kind of exploring that. So I'm just gonna shut down the code and I'm gonna run this. I'm having fun, Joshua. I hope you are. We're progressing, right? We're making progress, right? There you go. I expected the title to be post, but it ain't. There you go. And that is, I think, did I not get latest? Oh, timeout in minutes. Is that some stuff that Shri is doing in the build? Okay. So this is fail. Go ahead. Go for it.
All right. So now we'll do a poll.
Yep.
See
So let me ask
any
you a
changes.
very important question.
Yes.
Do you know how to use GitHub?
I did. I thought I did. I can't answer that confidently anymore. So.
All right, let's go. Is it failing for all the right reasons?
And
Nice.
failing. Okay. So I click on this guy. Okay. So then we want to have this as our post. So I'll click into this guy.
Mm.
Okay. So then on this deal, do we want to we want to hard code this, right?
Yeah,
There's no
yeah.
reason not to do it and stuff.
I
Okay. So
love
this is
that
a
you're
parameter
remembering that. Yeah, I think it's called button title. Oh, look, how come it's
button.
working with you? That's not fair.
Is
Just
it working?
type title in there. Just try type. Yeah, there it
Okay.
is. There it is. You got it.
And
Yep.
then we just say post.
Post. Yep. Run the tests.
And then I come back over here. This is not the right file.
Control minus. Should take you
Yeah.
back.
Oh,
Do Macs have control in them?
don't know anymore.
What do they have? They have command, option, and control, I think. That's what they have.
Okay. So then
Hey, it failed?
I haven't run it yet.
Let's go.
We're going. Okay, it's passed.
Yay! You can submit that.
Yay.
And out of curiosity, Josh, would you run like, okay, submit this and say pass, sure. Would you run the just run the app because I already fixed the index.
You're not gonna be able to see the deal unless I stop, unless I share that. So let me share that real quick.
Sounds good. Does it say post?
We will see together.
Oh, we'll see
It's
together. I love
post.
it. Yay! Zoom, zoom, so people see.
Oh, zoom.
How cool is
Nice
that?
post right there.
Nice. Can you do the same thing? Just upgrade the test to say new post in the title of the dialogue?
Sure.
Thank you, Joshua. Josh is cool. I like Josh. Josh is all right, right?
Every once in a while.
See, I was supposed to wrap this up like 20 minutes ago, but it's just getting too much fun. No, I'm also having fun doing this, so this is great. Yeah,
Okay, so we know that it's going to be
just
just
the title.
title. We're still running. That's why it's going to be slow.
You want to probably kill
So
the
we will
instance. Yeah.
title, and we want that to be should be, and then we want that to be just new post, right?
Yeah, just new
New,
post, all uppercase.
oh, all
For
uppercase.
for now, all uppercase.
We're
Yeah.
going to scream at them.
Yep. New post. I hope you guys watching us seeing the progression, like really smaller changes one by one. you're having the discussion, you're having fun, but also at the same time, you're basically, adding new capabilities and new features as you go. Let's do that. Here's a fail. All right.
And also, this is more the rhythm. Like, like we ideally we want to have a failing test that's perfect, but then sometimes we miss things and we go back and forth, but
Yep.
then you'll be able to show on that Git log that it is going back and forth, and we're having a conversation. So it's
A
the
cumulative
development
change.
experience is not just test driven development, but it's also a conversation, and as we're kind of reviewing the components. But
That's true too. So let's run this out real quick. Here we go. You gave me a failing test, Josh? After all these years? Is this what it came down to be? Wow. Okay. Wow. Okay. Blazor does change people. All right. So a new standard for naming conventions with these is that we're gonna keep every single like parameter in its own line. I think you and I were already doing that at some point in time.
Mhm.
I think. Okay. And you called this a title, just a title. Okay. Sounds good. A little risque because title is also kind of reserved for things, but here's new post, and
but
then
it
I'm
is the
gonna.
parameter of the dialogue, so we know that it's the
That
title
doesn't
of the
matter.
dialogue.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
yeah. Boom. Magic. More magic. So this guy should be passed. I'm gonna run it again, and then we're really gonna wrap up this time. Okay?
Sounds good.
Thank you, Josh.
So we spent an hour and 20 minutes to make a dialogue open and have two like text things show up on the screen. Was
Software
it worth it?
engineering.
Is that? Yep.
Software engineering. Deal with it. Here you go. So here's a new post. Beautiful, right? And a post in here. But the post
No,
doesn't
but
do. Mm.
my point was that as this is my first day. We haven't worked together for a while and everything. But as
Oh, I see.
as you go back and start doing tests and everything, you'll start clicking faster. You'll be able to go iterate through, and you'll kind of almost read each other's minds and stuff. But the nice thing is that this is tested, so now we don't have to come back. So a lot of times you'll do. There's a lot of SaaS updates in our stand-ups that are like, oh, the thing is done. I just got to get to a certain level of coverage and test. I got to add my test. Well, then it's not really done. So we spent a little bit more time than we should, but we explained why we went through the app and seen what was updated. But now we don't have to touch it again. We're done. We can wipe it. We can put a PR out there, and even though it seems
Just
pretty
draft it.
simple, we
Yeah.
know it's done.
Mhm. Yep. Components.
That's kind of where I was
Uh,
going. You didn't pick up that hint there, did you?
Yeah, yep, yep. No, I'm with you. I'm with you. You should have seen. I don't know who I was working with. You should have seen their faces when I said, "Oh, go ahead and do a Giphy, like a GIF recording in the pull
Hmm.
request." And he was like, "In the pull request, we make a Giphy." I was like, "Yeah, that's how we're gonna do it. Let me show you. I think let's see, view components, major fix. Oh, by the way, we have a new category called minor fix, major fix, stuff like that."
Oh, nice.
I know we haven't talked about that, but let me just show you his spinner. I think did he
I
put
mean,
it
we
in
would
here? There
record
it is.
videos or screencast,
Yep.
but we want to be nice to GitHub, right? So that's why we do a GIF.
And by the way, Shri just told me GitHub now supports a a a code for diagrams in
Oh,
GitHub.
nice.
So there's native support, diagram, GitHub. So I wish they just do, yeah, it's called Mermaid. Have you ever heard of Mermaid,
Mm-mm.
Joshua? So check
Nope.
this out. I can go here, check this out. I can go here and I do this, Mermaid, and I click on preview. Look what it's doing. Watch.
That's
Sh-
awesome.
Yeah, Shri just told me about that, but I don't know who's gonna, like, nobody's gonna design a diagram in code.
Well,
Would you do that?
we need to
You
draw
draw it
IO,
and then you generate the code.
export into, yeah, there you go. But I mean, this is really cool because sometimes we go from our design diagrams or our design or our design documents, or we're at the beginning of the project or the beginning of the sprint, and we make our user story from our design or our architecture, document.
Hmm.
By the time you get to a PR, the reviewer will be like, "Why are we doing this?" But if you can, like just like we do our tests, if we can incorporate enough information in our PR, it becomes easy to read, it becomes clearer, it's easier to review, and I think
Hmm.
I think this is pretty cool.
I never used Mermaid before. Have you?
Nope.
I never ever used Mermaid before. Mermaid, JS, I don't know. Mermaid.
Yes.
Yeah, it is a JavaScript library. I really hope I am able, like, I also know, like, right now, you can actually literally put SVG from a design component. You can literally put SVG right into your from draw IO right into your code. Like, let me show you. If I go up in here, this guy here, right? I can literally do select all and copy. So now I have that SVG from that code that I just copied, and I can go back into GitHub. And I know you want to go, but just hear me out. I can go right in here and say, hey, here's my SVG. So this is my SVG file right here. What do you think is gonna happen? Oh, is it not rendering it as SVG?
Hit the preview. Hit the preview.
Well, yeah, I know. It's,
Oh, okay.
yeah, nothing.
Hmm.
It didn't know it.
I have
It,
seen it export to SVG, but it's weird that it's
yeah, I'm surprised. Hold on, I didn't export it. I just copy. Yeah, hold on. So export as SVG. But can I just view the code? I swear to God, there was a way in Draw IO where you could just have the SVG itself.
yeah.
Uh,
Do select all, and I think there is. I think there's a. Is it does it show up in the context menu there? So it says copy as image, but I think that's what you did. But then is there like under edit and or
there,
export or something?
I thought there was a way you could switch to SVG view. You know what I
Oh,
mean?
weird.
Anyway, don't worry about that now. I really appreciate it. Just for the people watching us, if you really want to see what Josh and I as we progress, this is just a draft PR, and you see how we put our draft code out there, right? So there's no whip and then completed and you're hiding in the shadows. We're not doing it like that anymore. You're actually looking, following the progression. Look how clean this is. See how we're going like that?
So this draft idea, like you were putting it like day one, and we're not waiting until we get to like the like several days and stuff. Where'd that come from?
So putting your draft PR out. I actually learned that from you back when we were at John Deere. You'd say,
Oh,
do you remember you would say put a draft out so you can get early feedback from
Mhm.
your peers so you don't develop and build on something and go far. I would love to know why one would take like 2 weeks or 3 weeks, like usually a day or two, because we broke these components into really smaller ones so we can have iterative, quick. But you and I remember we used to solve problems that are really hard in terms of, how is this going to work, and it would take a little while, right? It's not the actual code and implementation, it's the problem that we're trying to solve. It's the algorithm, right? But
well,
I really learned that from you. Like it gives you immediate feedback. Is that right? Or is there anything else in the
Well, I think that I think that the how you shape the problem or how big the problem is was one thing, but how, every team has their differences on how they scope a problem. So some people's user stories are something that you can do in 1 to 2 hours, and some people's user stories is 1 to 2 days or 1 to 2 weeks. And if you're scoping a user story at a larger scope, or maybe we didn't think it was going to take that long, and then it is taking longer, it helps. And specifically when we were talking about John Deere, we had some at our stand-ups, our reviewer, our engineer that was in charge of reviewing the PRs and everything and stuff. If we did a draft PR before stand-up, he would check and say, "Oh, I see why it's taking longer,
its
and
progress? Yeah.
it requires more effort than I thought it did." So by the time we get to a stand-up, we don't have this awkward like, why is this taking so long? The engineers already know, and they can say, oh, because it's taking longer, we have the choice. We can either switch gears and do something different, or hey, I think you're going a little bit. There's maybe I thought this was going to be easier.
Yeah.
Let's try a different deal. So I just think that a draft PR puts it out there, it shows your progress, it gets feedback earlier. So by the time you get to your PR, you've already had 4 reviews by the time you get there. Plus, you're reviewing it with me because we're pairing it and stuff. I think that my personal thought is the user story is created as soon as you drag it into like in progress, it automatically should create a draft PR, which is a branch. You would then check out that branch and start committing that code. Then once you submit the code and then you close the PR, it automatically closes the ticket. So you see the natural progression of the ticket goes in play. Branch and draft is visible. PR closed, tickets closed. It's just a
Yep.
nice process for the whole team to kind of
And
follow. Maybe
visibility.
I'm just weird. Yeah,
Everyone is seeing. And also, we want to employ this stubbing capability where we don't actually have to check on the component itself. We could just say verify that the dialog base has been called once. What do you think about that?
I think that's huge. I think, and again, another translation and stuff. I think this is where when we looked at Blazor, we're like, React does this like shallow stubbing, and then like these mocks or whatever, and it would really kind of help our complex scenarios because right now we just have one abstraction. We're doing a wrapper of a dialog around a sync fusion component, but what if that dialog is inside of a bigger page, and what if you have specific interactions, or what if you want to display something on the dialog in addition to the form that you're rendering? These instead of having to have all of the components rendered inside of our test, now that injection allows us to kind of craft that exact scenario that we're looking for. I haven't been able to play with it. I know you've been talking highly about it. I'm really looking forward to playing
Let's
around with it.
try it
So
next time. Okay.
sounds good.
And Josh, it's always a pleasure hanging out with you, brother. This is so much fun. And just for the people watching, remember, it's not about the code, it's about the relationship that you build with people while you're building the code so you can develop 50,000 more projects in the future. And Josh and I haven't written code, together in a while, and somehow we just picked up speed real quick and we started developing software while we're talking and hanging out. How amazing is that? Is that pretty cool? I think that's pretty
I
cool.
think it's pretty cool.
I was explaining to Elbic this the other day. I said, if you're not really like, because you and I are trying to make this a kind of tutorial informational, if we are not recording and we're not actually targeting an audience that we want to learn, and you're just listening to me and Josh, you would think we're just sitting outside, drinking coffee or tea, and just talking to each other without, we're not doing anything. When in reality, our fingers are on the keyboard and we're writing code. Um, thank you so much for hanging out with me tonight. Let's keep doing that. It's always fun. And while we're having fun, we're building something great for the world, a truly decentralized social media platform that actually respects people freedom of expression. When I first started this project, I said, this is engineering free speech. How to actually take free speech to the next level and let people spin up whatever they want. We're not going to host anything. We're not going to control anything. If you know how to spin up an instance, go ahead and spin it up and have your own social network and to communicate with your family and all that. And well, that comes to a wrap for the people watching us. Of course, I hope you enjoyed this session. Josh is always fun to hang out with. But if you have any questions, comments, concerns, or compliments for Joshua, please feel free to drop a comment in the comment section. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you, Josh. See you in another video.